Hey guys, so it's the next morning and I have discovered that the Atraxa deck didn't record for whatever reason, so I'm going to have to redo this and then slip it in between the Kineos and Tiro and whoever the next one was. I think it was Brea. So this is Atraxa, the Praetor's Voice. She is green, white, blue, black for a legendary creature, Angel Horror. She's a 4/4 with flying, vigilance, death touch, and lifelink. And at the beginning of your end step, you proliferate, which means you choose any number of permanents and or players with counters on them and give each another counter of a kind already there. So, they've changed the wording on that a little bit. It seemed to me before you could add all sorts of counters, but like if a permanent had more than one kind of counter, you could add them up, but maybe that's wrong. Anyway, this is the one that most people are looking forward to. They want to build the Super Friends deck because with this you can increase Planeswalker loyalty counters as well. She just seems like a very vicious attacker and blocker. I anticipate that this deck is going to be fairly combo-y. We're going to find out. It's the no red deck, which means it'll probably do a lot of either outright kill or exile or -1/-1 counters on things. We'll see. The other options for commanders are Ishai Ojutai Dragonspeaker and Rayhan Last of the Abzan, or Ishai and Ikra Shiddiq, the Usurper. I'm really looking forward to putting Rayhan in the Marin deck from the previous cycle, because I think it would fit really well there. But for now, I'm going to play, the deck as it is. So we've got can't remember what the deck is called. Breed Lethality. Sounds like they're working on increasing the size of creatures, making tokens, things like that. We're gonna see. Playing the deck, the Breed Lethality deck is commanded by Atraxa, Praetor's Voice, a Mirren angel corrupted by the Praetors of New Phyrexia. Phyrexians obsess over evolution and perfection, and this deck focuses on reflecting that drive by constantly enhancing its creatures. Spend your first few turns playing smaller creatures you can grow while defending yourself. Your partner commanders, Ishai Ojutai Dragonspeaker, is a perfect early play that threatens to quickly take over the game. Her counterparts, Ikra Shiddiq, the Usurper, and Rayhan, Last of the Abzan, have abilities that are better suited to the late game. Atraxa, your primary commander, is an efficient threat in her own right and quickly grows creatures. Look for other cards that help boost your creatures in the mid-game, such as a Deep Glow Skate or Corpse Jack Menace. Once you've built a couple of huge threats, it's going to be tempting to get aggressive. You should time that shift to offense carefully, because it's the key to playing this deck effectively. Looking for opportunities to finish off players in a big attack, avoiding retaliation, cards like Abzan Falconer and Elite Scale Guard are perfect for forcing in lethal damage. So, it sounds like this is a classically mid-range deck. It does builds a board in the early game while trying to keep threats at bay, and then later goes on to completely dominate in aggressiveness. So I'm going to curve it out, and we're going to have a look. should be easier this time because I curved it out last night to have a look and didn't end up getting that recorded, which was a little annoying. Scavenging Ooze isn't exactly the type of thing that this deck is going to want. It's a 2/2 for 2 on turn 2 that will very quickly become a threat that your opponent really needs to deal with. I mentioned this last time, the time that you're not going to see. Astral Cornucopia is weird. It's XXX for an artifact that adds X to your mana pool in whatever color you choose. So 3 of any one color if you cast it for 9, 2 of any one color if you cast it for 6, and 1 of any one color if you cast it for 3. So this is a weird kind of ramp spell, which by the time you're at 9 mana, if you think you're going to need 3 more the next turn to cast, I don't know, an Eldrazi or who knows what, then that's fine. But usually you just cast this for 3 and it'll fix your mana, or maybe 6 and it'll ramp you a little bit into that 8 or 9 zone. But who knows? It's Commander. You might cast it for 9 or even 12 if you're feeling really kooky. Probably not, but you know. Solidarity of Heroes is a card with some of my favorite art of any Magic card. It came from Theros, but it was completely non-playable there. Now in Commander, it might be playable, especially in a deck that really cares about +1/+1 counters, because if you can, say, cast it for 4 and double the counters on your 2 biggest threats, that could be pretty powerful. At instant speed, no less. This is one of the cards that I'm most excited about from the new cards. It's Grip of Phyresis, 2 and a blue. For an instant, gain control of target equipment, then create a 0/0 black germ creature token and attach that equipment to it. This is going to go in pretty much every cube, I imagine. It's a germ holding a Sword of Body and Mind, which is awesome. And that's exactly what I want to do with it in blue control deck. I was actually in a game of Cube Sealed, where there were 5 of us playing and 4 of us had swords, and the other was playing blue control. So I'm sure she would have loved to have one of these. Here's another one worth looking at, Tezzeret's Gambit. It is a 4-drop, 3 and a blue, but the blue mana symbol here, you'll notice, is a little strange. It's not a mana symbol, it's a Phyrexian mana symbol, and Phyrexian mana can be paid either with the color it is, or with 2 life. So, draw 2 cards, then proliferate. Basically, you could put this in any deck, and it would be a colorless, draw 3, or pay 3, draw 2 cards, lose 2 life, and proliferate, which is strictly better than, say, Sign in Blood? Which just says, draw 2 cards, lose 2 life for 2 and a black. So, this is potent. You can just pay 4 for it, or you can pay 3 for it and take the 2 damage, but you get the proliferate, which in most sets there's going to be counters that you could double, but in the set it came from, it was even more important. Phyrexian mana is weird, and they don't do things like that as much anymore. So there's the deck. You can see its curve bulges at 4. It's nice and symmetrical on the low end and the top end with quite a bit of ramp. So I think these decks have a little too much land in them when they start, but it does make it more or less likely that you're just going to crap out and not be able to cast anything. I find these decks do tend to flood though, so I intend to take a few land out. But you can see this is the curve of a mid-range deck, and that's exactly what I expect when I play it. Just going to have a quick look at the lands. They were all pretty much the same. We've got Murmuring Bosk is interesting. As it enters the battlefield, reveal a tree folk from your hand. If you don't, it enters tapped. And it'll tap for green, or you can add white or black to your mana pool, and it deals 1 damage to you. So it's fixing, but it's also just a green source, which is pretty neat. We've got the usual tap lands, tri-lands, fetches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 forests, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 swamps, 1, 2, 3, 4 islands, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plains. Which tells me, if I look, Disdainful Stroke down here is the only blue spell at 2. Then there's Grip of Phyresis, which you're not going to cast on 3. Manifold Insights you're probably not going to cast on 3. So there's no blue that we need until, say, 5. Because we could cast Tezzeret's Gambit without the blue, and we could cast Mirror Weave for 2 white if we had to. So yeah, this makes a lot of sense that blue is underrepresented. Oh, I suppose you have your Thrumming Bird if you care that early. But it's very much more a black-green-white, sort of an Abzan deck, with more of an emphasis, I'm going to say, on green-white. And for a small creature turning into a big creature deck, that makes a lot of sense. Of course, there is Treasure Cruise at the top end to draw some cards, and mostly the blue looks like it's here just for a little bit of pop to keep you drawing into the things that you want. Any other interesting lands? The storage land, I'm not sure if I mentioned this in one of the decks to come, but the storage lands are cool because you can save up extra mana and then spend it all at once. You have to tap this and tap a land to put a storage counter on it, and then you can pay 1 and remove a storage counter from it, and you can pay 1 by tapping it itself if you want to, because it doesn't require it to tap. To add X mana to your mana pool, where you remove X storage counters. So that's pretty sweet. The bounce lands, I'm not sure also when I mention them, but they will put you ahead by putting you behind. You have to play them tapped, and they bounce a land to your hand when they enter, but they will tap for 2. So if you play it turn 2 and bounce your first land that you dropped, turn 3, you replay the first land and you're on 3. You are even on mana, it just sets you off a turn. And it means that you can keep hands with 3 lands if you've got a bounce land, and it's like a 4-land hand. Temple of the False God, this is an interesting one that I'm not sure where I mentioned it, but add colorless to your mana pool, activate this ability only if you control 5 lands or more. So it's useless if you get it early game, but it will allow you to pop your commander or any of your 5 or 6 drops faster. These tri-lands tap for 3 different colors, but they enter tapped. They're pretty solid. So yeah, I like this deck. I like all the decks from what I've seen. I'm going to look forward to playing them. But at this point, I think I'll probably cut into the next deck.